Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 5th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the winners of the Week 9 NFL season. It was a wild week in the NFL, and with the winners, we have to balance it out with the losers. We have the top 5 biggest losers of the week coming up in just 1 second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 5th. But like I was saying, we're getting into the biggest losers from Week 9 of the NFL season. As always, we've picked out 5. At number 5, very simply, it's the overtime rules. We've seen 2 overtime games this week, one of them in the spotlight on Monday Night Football, a couple of decisions, 3 overtime games this week. I forgot about that Titans game real quick, but we had 3 overtime games this week. The most overtimes in a week all season, and the overtime rules for 2 of them didn't really come into huge effects. There were field goals or punts/turnovers on each of those that led to the other team getting an opportunity. But as always with the Chiefs, once again, there was not an opportunity for the other team to get a possession. And I think that's the biggest issue with the NFL right now. You take a look at college overtime rules, and as much as I have gripes with it, as other people have gripes with it, maybe you don't start from the 30-yard line, you do a full drive. At least the other team gets a fair possession. Both teams get a possession, get a chance to answer back instead of it coming up to a coin flip. And I know that they fixed it in the playoffs. I love that they fixed it in the playoffs. That's a great thing. They fixed it in the playoffs. Why not do that in the regular season? There's no reason to hold just the right answer to just the playoffs. If you have a format that you think works, why not put it throughout the whole season? This is a very simple fix. You don't have to do anything other than let the other team answer. It's not that big a deal. It really isn't. You can borrow from college football. You don't have to start them on the 30-yard line, but let the other team get at least one possession. I think that's more than fair. When these games go to overtime, we're asking for good football. There's generally good football, and it happened again on Monday night. There was some really good football by both sides, and the Chiefs won the coin toss. They drove down the field as we expect the Chiefs to do, and the Bucs were just left sitting on their hands on the sideline. Baker Mayfield not getting a chance to answer after driving down and forcing overtime. It's just a mess of a rule right there, and I think it needs to change. That's the number 5 loser. Our number 4 loser of the week goes to the 2-win teams. As we stand right now, there are 9, count them, 9 teams in the NFL with 2 losses. Halfway through the season, 9 of the 32 teams in the NFL have 2 wins. That's it. They're all competing for this number 1 spot right now, and usually at this point, we have a couple of clear favorites, some really, really bad teams at the bottom, but right now, the teams at the bottom just keep being bad. And as much as it sucks to be bad, as much as it sucks to be that bad, 2 wins through 9 weeks, generally there's some silver lining. Generally, there's something out there saying, hey, you know what? We are going to at least get a top pick, a top 5 pick, something along those lines. But now they're not even convinced they're going to get a top 10 pick. And that is the worst of both worlds. To get a middling pick after having a brutal season, like a couple of these current 2-win teams are going to go through, it is not a good look for these teams. It is not a fun time to be a part of these teams, and I am not jealous at all for how they feel. 9 teams in that spotlight. If you extend it to 3 wins, we're into double digits there, and that's just no good. You have to have some silver lining for some bad teams there. The NFL is very much losing its middle class right now, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does suck for these bad teams and these fans of bad teams that are looking for something to look forward to after the season is done. Our number 3 loser of the week goes to the Indianapolis Colts. They made the boneheaded decision to switch quarterbacks, to give up on their known project quarterback, Anthony Richardson, just 10 games into his NFL career. Switch over to Joe Flacco. And, I thought it was dumb. Obviously, I've gotten on a soapbox and talked about that all of last week. That's besides the point. Here, what we're focusing on is the fact that, while I thought it might help them win now, that did not work. They looked worse than they ever have all season offensively. Joe Flacco struggling to complete passes, and I know it's against a good defense in the Vikings, a Vikings team that plays with crazy pressures. Brian Flores, one of the most creative defensive minds in the NFL nowadays. It's not an easy situation to come in, but Joe Flacco is a veteran. He's supposed to know when to make these easy plays that'll help them win that Anthony Richardson was not taking. There were on multiple occasions, you get that gunslinger Joe Flacco back when you just need 2 yards, and it costs them any it costs them any chance at competing in this game. You needed a win badly, which is why you went out and made this decision, and that offense looks worse. There were times when I was watching that Sunday night football game that I was thinking you should put Anthony Richardson back in. But now the question is it even possible to put Anthony Richardson back in? Is it something you can do looking at what you have done, the fractured relationship with him, with the receivers, with the locker room? How can you put Anthony Richardson back in the game and not ruin any chance of success? Is he going to get another chance to start? Have the Colts given up on him completely? Right now, they have put themselves in this mess. There's a difference between a Browns mess with Deshaun Watson, where, sure, they gave him the contract, but they didn't really coach themselves into this mess. That's a front office GM decision, and that's part of it. Whatever. It's not like the Saints, where they didn't coach themselves into this mess. They slowly got themselves into this mess. This is a solely your fault. Shane Steichen made this mess. He is going to have to live with it. I don't know how he's going to fix it. I don't know what the answer is, but right now, I think they need Anthony Richardson back out there if you're going to lose games. And they're going to lose games. Get your project quarterback some starts. It really is that simple. Give him a shot. He needs a shot to develop, and he's not going to develop from the bench. As much as people want him to develop from the bench, he's a guy whose biggest problem is accuracy, and he's not going to get any more accurate sitting on the bench. He's not going to get any more accurate not playing with the ones when they do practice. He's not going to get any more accurate like that. He's not going to make the better decisions like that. That is not something that fixes itself until he gets in the game. And they need to make that change now. They've gotten themselves in an unarguably awful position, and the Colts are a number 3 loser of the week. Sticking along those same lines, our number 2 loser of the week goes to the Chicago Bears. This is now 2 weeks in a row where we've had players give up on plays, not be ready for plays. DJ Moore is the culprit this week. Early on in the first quarter, 4 minutes have gone past in this whole game, and DJ Moore walks off halfway through a play. I know he can't touch the ball. I know he can't. He steps out of bounds. He's not allowed to touch it. But Caleb Williams is scrambling. He has played with very low intensity, low effort through a lot of these plays. DJ Moore coming out there and just walking out of the game a week after Tyreek Stevenson, who was benched for this game and kind of walked out of the Bears facility after that. This is a Bears team that now week over week over week has become more and more of a dumpster fire. This is a Bears team that was on an upward trajectory. They were winning games, and then one mistake compounds to another. Bad coaching decisions ruins a locker room. This is how you become a bad football team. This is how you stay a bad football team. They are on the up and up. And I think Matt Eberflus has just made decisions, and he's lost the locker room, and he should be out of a job by the end of this season. Him and the offensive coordinator. And that leads us to number 1. Our number 1 loser of the week, of course, goes to the Saints. We talk about awful locker room situations, and that's what it is for these 3-2 losers, but none are more toxic than the Saints. It's not just in the locker room, it's outside of the locker room. Brothers of players, former teammates. Michael Thomas coming to Twitter saying this is all Derek Carr's fault. Not a good look. Dennis Allen, their head coach, gets fired. About time for that. This is a team that I've been talking about for a while as one that's going to run into cap trouble, right? They're a team that's been pushing it off forever. They've been saying, oh, we can deal with it later. They're messing with the cap, doing the cap shenanigans. And this is a lesson for all these teams that are doing these cap shenanigans, that are pushing this money further and further down the line to ignore it. They have hit the wall. It is time to pay the piper for the Saints, and they are going to be in a dark place for a long time. They have no future. They have no money to get out of it. The only way out of this is to draft incredibly. And the Saints don't have a great history of drafting great. They have holes everywhere. They don't have the money to fix that in free agency. They're paying a lot of money to some players that are not on teams anymore. And all of that guaranteed money, it's coming up now. They are a team that is in the worst financial situation in the league, worse than the Browns, with just one contract, and there is no easy way out of it. The Saints are the biggest losers of the week, not just because you have players publicly apologizing on Twitter for losing a game, but because this team's future is nothing. They have come up, they have to pay what they've been waiting on for years and years and years, and hopefully other teams learn from this, because this is not a situation you want to be in. The Saints are the number one loser of the week, but let me know what you thought. Who is the biggest loser of the week? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the power rankings. Week 10 power rankings coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.